Good evening, everyone. This is Mortgage Pros 411. I'm Audrey Boissonou with my buddy Kevin Casey. Today, you will notice we have more than the usual number of people joining us. Welcome, Michael Simmons and Liz Green. How are you?
Thank you. Good. Good to be
Good.
here.
Happy to
Good.
be here.
Good to have you. Okay, before we get going on all this, first of all, I just want to let you know that we are set for a possible government shutdown tonight. So there's a meeting today at the White House. Cross your fingers and say a few prayers at least, because if the government does shut down, it will impact us to some degree. I would just like to say a thank you to Jim Neighbors, who is president of NAMB. Today is his last day, and NAMB for a really good comprehensive list of what will be impacted if the government does shut down. So I'm just going to click through it really because it's been a few years since we've had this. And we need to take care of a few things today if your loans are going to be impacted. So flood insurance, if you're using NFIP and not something like Lloyd's, you got to make sure that you are paying attention to that. Social Security and veterans benefits will continue. That's something. We'll take it. Federal employees. So there could be big time furloughs. So watch that if you have people in your hopper who you're hoping to fund sooner rather than later who work for the federal government. IRS operations, expect delays. USDA housing, we're not sure. FHA loan processing, it probably will continue. Federal court system, limited. So anyway, again, look at your pipelines today, see what your loans are, see if they will somehow be impacted by
The
this.
flood zone is the big one, I think.
It is. I mean, we do have private options for a lot of people these days, but it does act, and also the delays on things like 4506s, et cetera, from the IRS.
Actually, the 4506s, last few times I've had the shutdowns, the 4506s did not get delayed, which was nice because it's all automated.
But it does say expect delays. So if they're saying expect delays, we could have delays. You never know. So the other things on the little checklist for this week is it's jobs week, just in case you didn't know.
Wait. Go back to the shutdown because I have a very important question about the shutdown. Can I still walk over to my beach without having to jump over white or yellow caution lines? Because that's what happened last time.
I don't know. Okay, so
I just bring a scissors with me and cut the line and keep going.
okay, I'm going to put a muzzle on you.
All
All
right.
right, it is jobs week. I just told these guys I have 6 pages of stuff to get through today. 6 pages. All right, so it's jobs week. And assuming we don't have a government shutdown, here's how it will go. So today we had JOLTS. Tomorrow we'll have ADP. We'll also have mortgage applications tomorrow, God willing. Thursday we'll have jobless claims, maybe, maybe not. And then Friday, BLS. BLS is a biggie. We really need that report right now because it's really going to give the Fed an idea of what is happening with jobs. I mean, assuming it's right. And they are making some pretty major decisions coming up, and we'd like them to have all the information possible. So buckle up, kiddies, as usual. It's a wild ride. We also are having live NMLS classes around the state, and this Friday we'll be in Pleasant Hill, California. It's being put on by East Bay Camp. A couple of cautions. First of all, I keep saying this, check your NMLS to see if you need a credit report and or a background check. They're being required a lot this year. Some regulatory agencies are trying to get everyone on the same schedule, so everyone's checking their credit on the same year. So check early so that you're not caught needing this and having to scramble at the last minute. If your credit is frozen and you are having to do a credit report for the NMLS, unfreeze it. I know that sounds kind of obvious, but it hadn't really occurred to me before. Also, we're hearing that MU4s are taking a long time at NMLS, so just don't wait. Don't wait. All right. So you're weirdly quiet, Kevin. Nothing? That was it?
You know what? I'm not crazy about this background.
Okay. We'll discuss that later. We will discuss that later. Okay, so recently in an NMLS class, we had a question because we often have people in the classes who do both loans and sell real estate. And they had asked, because we do a whole section every single year on bank secrecy acts and how they work and how you should do it and why are they in the course every year. And that's obviously because everyone's still getting it wrong and not following the rules. Anyway, guess what? Realtors have to start following this December 1st.
Oh,
So
really?
I had my buddy at my local association reach out to NAR to get their take on this. And it sounds like they could be someone could be litigating this, whether or not they have to comply. But at the moment, it goes into effect on December 1st. So if you're a realtor and you are not sure how this works from a real estate perspective, go to the NAR website. FinCEN also has some information on that. And since we're mentioning real estate, I'm just gonna throw this in because I thought it was funny. What they taught us in real estate school, how many square feet are in an acre versus
500, 208, 5,280.
what they should have taught us in real estate school, what to do when a lockbox wouldn't open, what to do when you walk in on a naked tenant, what do you do when the water is shut off at a vacant home and you have to use the restroom? I mean, I thought that was right on the money, right? We could make up our own for the loan business, couldn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
Yes.
results report came in at 7.227 million jobs versus they expected 7.190 million job postings. So, it wasn't a huge difference. As usual, as we go through every time we discuss this, when you lose a job, harder to get a new job. So, so okay, I promise to keep moving, but we did have, okay, so somebody corrected you, said,
Yeah, well, I heard in the
the
square mile, or
square
how many
feet
feet in a
an
mile
acre.
is what I heard, but okay. Square
Okay,
feet.
and then Deborah wants to know what the answer is to the naked tenant dilemma. We'll have to come back to that because again, I have 6 freaking pages of stuff to go through. Okay, so,
Thank God we don't have to deal with that issue in the lending world.
well, maybe. Okay, what are we going to talk about? I want to get through the appraisal stuff since we have these amazing guests. And we've known Michael Simmons for 10,000 years. He's amazing and wonderful and always such a great resource for us. He is one of the owners for Axis Appraisal. Liz Green is a senior VP at Service Link, and she the conversation with her yesterday, I'm super excited about today because she is all over all these new changes. I mean, Michael is the one who said we had to have her also. So thank you, Michael. And so let's start with, guys, what is the UAD 3.6? Let's just spell it out.
So,
Well, go ahead,
So-
Mike.
so Audrey, let me just mention a couple of quick things and kind of give you a fast lead into what Liz is going to talk about today. And I'm going to try and stay out of her way because she is probably the most knowledgeable subject matter expert in this whole field. She's starting with her work in MISMO, which is the Mortgage Industry Standards Maintenance Organization, which is the Rosetta Stone for how all the different lenders and organizations talk to each other in the underbelly of tech. It really runs the show in a silent kind of way. But Liz is the very best of the best. So let me just preface her her talk with this. Our industry is on the verge of experiencing a tectonic shift. It will impact and affect those who directly prepare, deliver, and consume appraisals. Appraisers, AMCs, software providers, lenders, investors, builders, regulators and their investigators, attorneys, borrowers, all will need their scripts rewritten to capture these changes. What will not change is the appraiser's role. They will still need to analyze and support their value conclusions. Their goal is to produce more accurate reports and enhance a suite of reporting tools that can safely capture and support specific lending risk. Our goal today is to provide you guys with a framework to help you understand the changes that are coming. You need that knowledge to guide and inform your clients. This is a giant topic, and it can't be covered in the fraction of an hour we have today. But it will be an important start for you. Hopefully there'll be time for your questions. If and when we run out of time, perhaps Audrey and Kevin can capture any leftover questions, and Liz and I will promise to do our best to follow up with answers to all of you. So with that little opening gambit, Liz, I hand off the baton.
Thank you, Michael. So I guess the best way to start is to answer Audrey's question, what is UAD 3.6? UAD stands for the Uniform Appraisal Data Set, and it actually rolled out in its first generation back in 2011. As Mike mentioned about MISMO, MISMO is a data standard and is used for a variety of interfaces that are required between Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and lenders under the Uniform Mortgage Data Program, which was born out of Dodd-Frank way back when. And so we're now coming into the second generation of the appraisal data set. The first time that we did this, again, it rolled out in 2011. You may remember that the changes that we saw on the appraisal forms, first of all, were limited to the 1004, the 2055, the 1073, and the 1075, those being what are known as the UAD forms. And the first UAD was really guidance or instruction to the appraiser on how to fill out the form. The GSEs want very specific types of answers in their appraisal reports. And many of the changes that we saw on the first go around were limited to abbreviations that you may know now by seeing them on the report sandwiched between semicolons. Those are actually the addition of additional data points in the underlying data file. The next generation, UAD 3.6, actually takes an entirely different approach. Instead of taking the existing appraisal forms and adding data to it, we're actually turning it on its head and saying, this is the data set, and from this data set, the appraisal report will be created. And to make that really happen, the first thing that is really important to know is in this brave new world of what we call 3.6, all of the existing appraisal report templates that we know by their numbers, right? 1004, 2055, et cetera. Those are all being retired and consolidating the information into a single uniform residential appraisal report, which will be the same common view for all property types and all assignment types.
I mean, by assignment types, you mean loan types?
Assignment types meaning loan type. So if we're doing a refi, if we're doing a purchase money, et cetera, and if it's whether it's single family, multifamily, it would be on the same form. The focus, I will point out that the primary focus in this initial implementation from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is centered on origination. We do believe that over time that the same consolidation and the use of the new style of reporting will find its way into other uses such as servicing, where we might have appraisals done for default, for example. But the primary focus and the specifications, Mike referenced this as a tectonic shift. I will second that by saying this is the most highly engineered technical specification that the mortgage industry has ever seen for a fulfillment service, right? That is needed as a part of the loan transaction. So to just kind of reiterate, the main thing that we're going to see in a community like this, where we are actually the folks that receive and use that appraisal report as a part of our underwriting, as a part of our work with our consumer borrower, is that the new report, this new Uniform Residential Appraisal Report, is a much more modern and sophisticated presentation. We're coming out of the kind of the dark ages. So if you think about the last time the actual 1004 URAR existing appraisal report template was modified was 2005. and it's still a form, right? And the old world of a form means you fill in the blanks, right? You're filling out the form, and it's basically here's an old fun acronym, WYSIWYG. It's basically what you see is what you get, right? The form template, static, limited, fill it out. The certifications and the disclaimers, everything is all there in that nice, neat 6-page package, right? The new Uniform Residential Appraisal Report is not a fill in the blank. It's actually rendered from the analysis and the software that the appraiser is using. So it truly is a report. It is a result of the process. And in so doing, that report is also going to be dynamic. And what that really means is that it'll be very specifically tailored to the specific characteristics of a given subject property and of that subject property's market and all of the pieces that go about that particular report. So it really has a better sense of granularity, but it will be much different in form and in function than the old forms. So I want to pause there and see if we have any questions.
Okay,
When does this roll out?
we have 1 million questions, so
1 million questions. Let me give a quick timeline for framing. So we are actually already in what is termed the limited production period from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. This is not a test period, it's real live production, but it is based on lenders who have been approved by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to participate in submitting this new style of report, and appraisers who are using software that has also been certified by the GSEs for this purpose. The broad adoption period, which is really where I think we'll see some real action, begins at the end of January 2026 and runs through the mandate date of November 2nd, 2026. On November 2nd, new loan submissions on or after that date must have the new URAR as a part of its package for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Now, the FHA has recently announced that they will also be adopting the same style of reporting and the data set. They have not yet provided their timelines. That hopefully will be coming soon, and it should be a fast follower to the GSE date, so maybe starting mid-year 26. But it's important to note that through this whole development timeframe that the GSEs have been in, which is really started back in 2018, and they've been working steadily on it, they've included the FHA, the VA, and the USDA representatives. So that's a new style of report, along with the data set that goes with it, will accommodate all of the information that those government entities would also require. But they would have some different policy layers on top of that, like when a certified appraiser might be needed, for example, or when we have additional information to collect. So go ahead, Audrey. It looks like you want to say something.
you can keep talking because I'm sure whatever's about to come out of your mouth, we don't know anyway. So don't stop on my account. Yeah.
Well, let me also just point out something else that I truly am really looking forward to as a benefit for not only homeowners or borrowers that are consumer folks, but also the lending audience as well, is that this is a much better looking report. Much more modern. And so if you're familiar, do you remember the changes that came into play under TRID when we did the new loan estimate and the new closing disclosure? So the GSEs used the same designers for the new URAR look and feel. So those documents will actually look like they go together, right? So the consumer would see a very complementary set of documents that he receives copies of.
Wow. Do you have
And you don't know how many complaints I've gotten from consumers that the appraisal didn't match the LE. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, nobody. I was like, really? Okay.
Said no borrower ever.
So
Yeah.
this might be a good moment to add a little bit of context to this. This change that's taking place if you look at at an appraiser today, when they do their inspection, they capture maybe 200 or 300 data points, somewhere in that neighborhood, as part of their observe and report. Under UAD 3.6, because of the types of questions that are asked and the responses that are driven by those questions, there could be as many as 1,200 or 1,500 data points.
Well, that also includes the rest of the analysis as well.
Yes.
So
it's a significant increase in data, a significant increase in time. So when the GSEs march their chief appraisers out in the field and tell lenders that they expect that this will ultimately result in faster and less expensive appraisers, they're high.
Well, I think I need to clarify a couple of quick things on that, just to keep us all in the same bailiwick here. There certainly are a lot more possible data points, and because we're collecting information, the design from the data and the report perspective, when I said dynamic, that means that it can grow. So if I have a primary residence and a detached garage and a barn and a pool house, in a subject like that, the new report would capture all information on each of those structures, whereas today I might just have some comments about those other three structures and focus on the main dwelling. So it does expand and contract. The other thing that I think is really kind of at the heart of the comment of why it might be faster is that one of the most significant differences that the data standard brings to the table is a data standard provides a common language. Think of it as a dictionary. And if we're all going to write a book and we're all going to use the same dictionary, and we're all going to use the same topic, we would probably all be wanting to use similar vocalese, similar terminology. Today, we have a lot of information that gets built into commentary. It's free-form text. It's sometimes very verbose. It is usually the cause of many of the questions back and forth between underwriter and appraiser. So with the new data set and the new URAR, I would wager to say that 75% of the new information that has been redefined in this new reporting style is of the variety of what we would call enumerated or pick list. So when we're going through as the appraiser and we're doing our inspection, it's a lot of point and shoot, and it's a bit of a what we would call a wizard approach in some cases. So as you answer certain questions to the positive, it will prompt you for additional questions. So there's a bit of a trade-off, right, from the having to do a lot of writing free-form text to having to select answers, right? And those selected answers, those pick list values, mean that we're all describing and using the same terms, the same language for the same sorts of information. That means that not just in a particular market or in a particular jurisdiction or a particular state, but across the nation, right? As mortgage banking is a national endeavor, as it has been for the last 20 plus years, we have underwriters that may be 2,000 miles away from where that subject property is. So there's, I think, a tremendous benefit to having the common language. I will not certainly dispute the fact that it could be, in some cases, much bigger, but I think it will be, the trade-off will be that it will be a more accurately represented report, and that the appraiser could hopefully spend, instead of having to write so much of that fluff material, because we're collecting the data in a discrete fashion with those pick list drop downs, he'll be able to spend more time on the real heart of the matter, which is the market analysis and the opinion of value.
So, okay, let me just get going on my list because it is
Okay.
combine a few things, because I do have a million questions about how will it be different for borrowers when the appraiser goes out, if at all. How is it going to be different for us as LOs when we receive an appraisal? I mean, it's going to be, and how much is it going to cost? Because we have seen appraisals the cost of them go up exponentially in the last number of years, are we going to be experiencing more increases? And what part, like, I'm curious. So when they go out to the property and they have a checklist within a computer program, it sounds like, and then
Well,
there's
there's
drop downs you said, and then are they using AI in any of this? And are they able to pull in the moment from like Fannie Freddie resources that they have in there? Like, how does this work?
So lots of really good questions. So let me start off by saying that the appraisal process and the appraisal science that we use today doesn't change. This is really a client requirement in the form of, just like the 1004 is a client requirement that stipulates, I want you to tell me these things in this way, right? And because that form predates most of the automation that we know and love in our world for the last 20 years, it's been hard to get true automation and true use of great tools that we take for granted in other areas into the hands of the appraiser. So that's number one. Number two, when an appraiser or a designated inspector or property data collector goes on site, the process is essentially the same. The difference is, when you mention AI, for example, so we're able as an industry to use computer vision and be able to pull information from photos in a much more accurate and timely way. We know that that happens not just at the point of the appraisal being prepared by the appraiser, but it happens in appraisal review and it happens at the GSEs, right? And so that's number one. Number two, a big technology piece that has gained a lot of ground in recent years and will continue to be a part of this is scanning technology to produce floor plans, right? So gone are the days of, pulling a physical tape and moving through all of that. And that allows us to get a lot more accurate and timely results for that very important piece, right? That's really, as we all know, right, the size of the home is a big contributing factor to the value. So those two technology pieces. From a data collection perspective, like you said, is he, instead of a clipboard, will he have an iPad or a tablet? Yes, and there's a variety of ways. Different software vendors are offering different ways of doing this. Some are offering companion inspection apps that then interface with the software. Others are using the software itself and allowing that to be because it's driven from a website instead of a desktop software. They can actually use the software. So there'll be a lot of options for appraisers. But I think the most important thing that this will result in is a better, more comprehensive inspection result, and then the use of that information again in the most important piece, which is the analysis and the opinion of value.
So I read somewhere, maybe it was in something you had written, that appraisers are going to be able to list the properties they've considered but not selected. So value in that, because oftentimes we're like, okay, why didn't you use that? Or why,
That's right.
right? So I like that part a lot. Are they, but again, this seems like potentially it's more work. And how do the appraisers feel about this? Are they on board with all this?
Well, that particular is optional. That item of including properties considered but not used is, as the documentation from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac specifically state that initially this is at the appraiser's discretion to provide context. And so many times that is the reason for questions back and forth, right? Whether it's underwriter or whomever, why didn't you use this comp versus that? So I also think another important thing to point out that, and this is not new, and it's been emphasized in refined policy updates earlier this year from the GSEs with regard to market supported adjustments in the comparable analysis. So we're going to see a lot more when we talk about data and we talk about AI. What this also allows us to do as appraisers is to take advantage of regression analysis and other analytical tools to process a large amount of data and to really be able to have scientific support that tie to the market for why, not only why this comp or these comps, but why these adjustments and why this amount. Many appraisers years ago, we used to have a checklist based on how we were trained that a bathroom was worth X and this and that. We would have like certain amounts. That is very past tense, right? We really want actual supported adjustments that are borne out in the comparable market, right? And so when you use that kind of science, that brings the analysis to a new level in terms of accuracy.
So how is this going to impact things like the analysis of a view, for instance? I always find views to be very interesting because I open houses where I'm in the house that has a great view and the one down the street has no view, and this one is listed for $80,000 more and that one is and when you talk to borrowers, they
Yeah.
literally, some of them think it's worth nothing and some of them think it's worth 80 grand. Some of them would pay more.
Or $1 million.
So
I've seen $1 million difference between one
Yeah.
block to the next block for the exact same house.
it's very
Just based on view.
and then appraisals will appraisers will look me in the eye and say it's scientific. I'm like, no, it's not. How could it possibly be when everyone has a different opinion based on what they value? So how do we take that into account, Liz?
Well, it really is a perfect example of when we say a supported adjustment. I mean, it is what the market will bear, right? And if you have view, for example, as a compelling item that you're either taking comps up or down, you need to be able to prove that, right? And so much of where we're going, especially from the standpoint of bringing in a lot of data and using analytics to process that data, we can get a much more better understanding of what is that buyer pattern, what is that buyer preference in that particular market, in that particular locality. And I think it's an important point for me to insert right here that one of the big things that you will notice in the description of the market in the new URAR is that we're no longer calling it a neighborhood. We're not having a description of the neighborhood and the neighborhood statistics. We're calling it market. So the market is the market, right? So that whole section now, the only time you'll find the word neighborhood on the new URAR is in the neighborhood name. Everything else will be in a new section called market. It's much more comprehensive. It kind of brings in the best of what was in the retired 1004 MC and some of what's on the forms today, but really brings in a better piece and really encouraging the appraiser to provide statistics, right? We want to see that average days on market. We want to see the median and the means. We want to see that not only in your answers, but in the form of graphics where we can actually see the trend lines. And so there are tools now that the appraisers are beginning to use and will become really critical in the adoption of the new URAR because those exhibits are now being really leaned heavily on as people start to question, just like you did. Hey, what do you mean the view is scientific? Prove it to me. And when we can show you in the numbers, right? That's where it is.
I like that very much. So we had somebody else who kind of phrased my appraiser response question a little differently, which I kind of like his way better. How difficult is this change for the appraisers? And is it going to take them longer to complete a report? Do we know?
Well, I think let's answer that in two pieces. So the appraisal process and the new URAR, it basically follows the same tenets that we're used to, right? It's just a little bit more depth and expansion, right? Because we're looking for more clarity, more information gathering. The softwares are taking their own individual approach. They have a mandate of the output that they have to produce, but how they offer up, just like today, right? It's their own secret sauce or competitive advantage. I think there's a learning curve that everyone goes through, whether you're learning a new software that is on the same job you've done forever, but it's a new system, right? It takes a little bit to learn the new system. You'll have some of that. And then you'll have some of the pieces where, it is new enough for some appraisers that, it'll take a little bit more time. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to see a leveling out because we're not introducing some like a fourth value approach to value, right? We're not changing how appraisal science is done.
Okay, so that's interesting to me that we're going to have different software available for this. It's not just one version of it, which means
Correct.
at, okay, if they are supposed
You
to,
have that today.
pardon me?
You have that today.
Yeah, okay, thank you for, I needed that. So because and you did say output has to be
Standardized.
standardized, right? So I'm just curious to see how that's gonna go and how transparent are people going to be with their software? And then are we doing side-by-side comparisons to make sure that the final product is the same? So if somebody goes and
Yeah.
does appraisal of this property and uses A software, and then they do the same appraisal using B software, do we get the same final result?
That's actually where the GSEs are right now. They're certifying those vendors and to be able to productionalize and to deliver those files through that software, they have to be approved. And so they're actually, I think they have 12 different providers that are in some stage of certification for exactly that purpose, right? They're all using the same 15 samples. They all have to produce the same 15 outputs, and they have to all meet the criteria for certification from the GSEs. There's a handful of new entrants into that field of offering appraisal software. And I will say that because of this change, some of those entrants are new and young and full of all kinds of whiz bang new technology, which is very exciting, right? Because we need that to be able to stay on top of our profession and to be helpful to the industry.
Yeah, my hope is that that new whiz bang technology is being used side by side or created side by side with someone who actually understands
Yes.
the process. I mean,
They're actually appraisers. That's the funny thing.
that's
And
good.
both, yeah.
That's really good. Okay, so here's a great question. So will the appraiser still select the final value of the property, or will the software indicate the value based on the 1,300, inputted variables?
No, the appraiser must indicate the value.
Interesting.
Interesting. And
And
so
will the appraiser see any other appraisals have been done in the area?
Again, this is no different than how they operate today.
That's kind of what I figured, but
Yeah, this
just
is
thinking
this is
there's a
just
whole lot of value to all that data that, maybe as an investor gets it, they can look and say, wait a minute, 123 Main Street was appraised for this price, and 125 Main Street was appraised for this price 2 months ago. Why are they so different? And when the photos look identical, but it just depends.
and then
Yeah.
how do you count for things like, okay, my property is, in perfect updated condition and everything's hunky dory, but the similar property down the street that looks the same, someone died in it, or there was a murder, or you know what I mean? How are they going to know? Will it be the same as now? Like someone has to tell them, or it will, okay. Okay. So there's
Well, the other thing I'm thinking is, so like, I got a referral one time from a loan officer who the loan was in San Francisco, and he just said, I can't figure out San Francisco for the life of me. Your homes are all so different from each other, from one house to the next house, versus where he was from, every house was cookie cutter, boom, 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 all the way down the street. And
Yeah.
so, his thinking was they all should be that way. When, in San Francisco, you have homes that are 200, well, maybe 100 and something years old next to a brand new house construction, next to another
Mhm.
house that's 30 years old, next to a house that's completely separate, just different architectural style. And each one would have a completely different value just depending where it is. And, there's sometimes, I mean, I can't imagine as an appraiser how they ever figure those ones out.
this is why the realtors never want, and we never want an appraiser from out of the area. We want
Exactly. Yes.
area. That is exactly why. So you understand that on this side of 580, it's one price, and on this side of 580, it's another price. So
Well, that would be neighborhood, Audrey.
we don't call them neighborhoods anymore, Kevin. They're called markets.
Markets.
So I'm assuming the term hoodie neighborhood is going away.
Sorry?
The term hoodie neighborhood is going away.
Okay. So Liz, we teach NMLS, and this has come up in the last few years where they've given us examples of things that you may not say in an appraisal anymore, and hood and spicy were on the list. So
Oh.
but that's what he's talking about, just in case that seems and you know.
Well, fun fact on the new URAR and with the new UAD data set, when we talk about pick list values and when the majority of the new report will be driven based on those discrete responses, it doesn't introduce the potential of having, some unfortunate turn of words or some issue that we would see today because there's much more free-form text today.
Well,
Okay.
you know,
You have
what,
not, Liz, you have not answered the cost question. What do you happen to the cost? Let's hear it. Come on.
Well, it's funny, just like appraisal, I think that the market will dictate what the prices are going to be. Appraisers are really in the driver's seat to understand, just like they do today, what their fees are. And that I think will begin to take shape as this period starts to roll out. We talked about the broad adoption period beginning at the end of January. There's no magic switch that says on January 27th, every appraiser in every market is ready to do a new style report. They're going to come online at different times. And as that happens, and as people begin to understand what it means in their respective part of the food chain, whether it's the appraiser or the lender or the AMC and reviewer, I think we'll start to see things really start to take shape, probably about 2 to 3 months into the broad adoption period.
Okay, so yesterday when I was mentioning to you an issue that had popped up for me on a property that is in an area that looks like the countryside, but is 15 minutes from a Whole Foods.
Right.
And although the appraiser had marked suburban,
Yes.
the underwriter and then the investor initially had freaked out thinking it was agriculture and rural because they had like this abbreviation in the title of the zoning AGR. I mean, it was just a nightmare. So you mentioned that zoning won't be on the new appraisal or
No, zoning will be there, but what you're talking about is a location a location item that has been there forever and ever. It was either urban, suburban, or rural, right? So
Okay.
it was called neighborhood location. It was on page 1 of the form. That particular field is not on the new URAR. And the reason for that is because we're more comprehensively defining and detailing the market based on the market attributes as opposed to trying to fit it into, and those are very old classifications. So I've been around a long time, and I can remember way back when these things were, just like filling out a form was considered a standard because we didn't have computers, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have any of the things that we have now. So when we had a term like urban, suburban, or rural, that was a nice, handy way of kind of grouping things in a standard way, right? And we all know that with wherever you are, that you can be, in a suburban setting and be 5 minutes from the freeway or 5 minutes from the Walmart. I mean, things have definitely changed. So now you're going to have a much more tailored description and detail of the market for that subject property.
I would have been better off if they had actually just gone with suburban check, whatever the heck it was that freaked everyone out, because in the end it was literally a density issue.
Yes, yes,
Turn
which
this,
is important.
you're not going to turn this.
Density, zoning, all those things will still be a part of this discussion. It's just that old-fashioned term, urban, suburban, and rural, gone.
All right. So, any other examples of old report versus new report that we would like to know about?
Well, one thing that I think is also really exciting for the users of appraisal services, so loan officers, underwriters, consumers, there will be a new summary at the beginning of the report, and that summary will recap some of the key information from the body of the report, right? And so you'll be able to see all of the big winners instead of what do people normally do? They flip to page 4 and let me see the number, right? It'll be right at the top on page 1, right? With all the other kind of key supporting facts. And the other thing that will be important, and we talked about it, somebody had a question As Kevin, I think it was you, as we started off about a property that might have had some water damage in a room.
Mhm.
Another new feature in the new URAR is a collection that is known as defects, damages, and deficiencies. And so there will be a very concerted table in the 5 key sections, such as the interior, the exterior, the site, vehicle storage, where if there is observed issues, right, they can be properly identified in a common way. And also, if it is an as repaired assignment, we can also get the repair costs into that. But another big compelling feature of the newly designed URAR, in addition to the summary, is that the photos, the exhibits, and the commentary are now domiciled at the topic level. So when you're in the site section, all the photos of the site, all the comments about the site will all be in the site section. There will be no additional extraneous addendums. So everything is built. That's why when Mike says it could be as many as 1,500 fields, sure. And it could be several pages because it will expand and contract based upon what is necessary for this particular report for this particular subject. So comments and photos right in the section that they belong in takes the readability up tenfold, right? Taking away a lot of extraneous commentary and making it discrete responses also increases the readability because we're able to all get on board with, okay, yes, I know what this means, and this means. I don't have to try and plow through colloquialisms or abbreviations or things that that particular appraiser is used to doing. So those things will improve everyone's use of the appraisal report.
So we have a question here. Some of the jumbo investors have maximum percentage adjustment overlays for 2 specific grids in the appraisal. Will the new format change the way jumbo lenders have created overlays in the past? Do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, we talk a lot about this with regard to, okay, so the new URAR and the new UAD is great for conventional deals, right, to Fannie and Freddie. And then, of course, you can see the FHA and the VA and the USDA like a close second. But all that non-QM, all that jumbo stuff and the way things are done, they're, where just like appraisers are very unique in how they have approached like certain topics and how they produce their commentary or how they even do their adjustments. The same is true for these non-QM or the private label end investors. So I do think that they will end up having to conform somewhat to how they do adjustments. The percentage adjustment piece is always, I mean, what we're looking for in the new URAR is a monetary adjustment. We also have adjustments available on a roll-up basis in certain categories. So like, for example, project amenities, for example, could be presented as one adjustment as opposed to an adjustment for the pool, and an adjustment for the dock, and an adjustment for the doorman, etc. So there are some unique differences. The other thing I think is important to recognize for purposes of overlays and understanding some of these differences, everything is very engineered from a software perspective. So when we're talking about URAR and 3.6 and those softwares that are all being certified, the way that this works is that you can't really generate the result without software, and therefore you can't really generate it out of scope or out of bounds of its requirements. So those third-party investors will have to get either on board with that, or they will be creating their own set of specifications that would deviate, and the software would have to be able to deviate to those changes. So that's something that I don't see happening right away. I think it will happen eventually in some cases. But I would also point out to you that in addition to the comment about no extraneous addendums, in addition to the main forms being consolidated, so are the main addendums, right? So the 1007 rent schedule is now inside of the rental information section of the new report. If you have a 2 to 4 and we've got rental income to consider, all of the income approach and the rent comparables and so forth will be in the report as opposed to being separate. So the 1025 is a part of this consolidation as well.
Wow. I just, in my head, I'm just thinking through the ramp up, shall we call it, period for investors. We were talking to the head of an appraisal department last week, and they were talking about how there's been a lot of pushback on appraisals and buyback requests and all sorts of, like there's been a lot going on with appraisals on the back end of things. Often post close when the loans are being delivered with different investors. So, just again, because my experience in the last week is so fresh in my head, and I'm thinking about the process that I went through, and we were able to resolve it, but it was a little crazy. And so anytime you have change, it's going to be something for the connection from the underwriter to the investor to us to the bar, like all of it. And ultimately, it's going to be interesting to see, like, does this impact values and the valuation at the end? And I feel like you think it won't. Is that correct?
Honestly, I think it will improve our confidence in not only the appraisal report itself, but in the value, because there's a lot more concerted technological support to underneath the appraiser's professional opinion in the new style, right? So today it's very, very dependent upon a fill in the blank form, and sometimes, if an appraiser is working in a particular locality, he may have prefab descriptions of the area and of certain things, and then he just drops in, right? It's like, oh, these are the 12 things that I always do for this particular locale. It will be harder to do that in the new style because there's a much more subject property centric viewpoint, right? And I think that combined with the consistency of the data and the availability of better analytical tools for linear regression and processing more data, as well as computer vision on photos, et cetera. These things will all coalesce to ultimately provide a much better supportable outcome with a lot less back and forth, a lot less interference. And quite honestly, I believe that it will reduce the number of buybacks over time because there will be less opportunity for a critical failure to occur. It will be caught much sooner, meaning it'll be caught by the appraiser and it will be resolved before he turns in the report.
So Audrey, the point that Liz just made is a really important point, especially in the context that there's a whole segment of the appraiser universe that's terrified of these changes, in part because they haven't really tried to embrace them, and they're intimidated by the technology.
These are the ones that are still pasting the photos onto the report.
Yeah, nobody's doing that anymore, Kevin. Come on, it's not that bad. But this, as Liz pointed out, this is the first change of any magnitude in the last 20 years. I mean, and this is a big change. And there are going to be appraisers that will just throw up their hands and say, maybe I'll find some tangential way to maybe hang around the industry, but I can't do origination appraisals anymore. They're just beyond me. Well, here's the interesting point as I see it. The point Liz made about the data and the nature of it, it will take an average or below average appraiser, and if they simply followed the prompts, they'll produce a better report than they ever had before. It's the data is there for them to see. They simply have to take the time to look at it. Now, it's a challenging message for all of us in the industry to try and get that out there. I think what will happen is that the very good appraisers will learn how to mechanize this process much more quickly, much more effectively, and they'll be the clear winners here. They'll be able to produce more volume in a more finite period of time than anyone else. But that's always been true in the industry. Yeah. That's always been true.
Right.
But I think that in this kind of workout period, the question about cost is going to be an important one. Everybody's going to have to learn new dance steps, and it's a kind of a complicated mamba. So it will take a little time to get the rhythm, and time equates to cost. So
well,
yes.
I would just like to point out from the LO perspective to the appraisal industry that when we've had these sweeping changes, I typically get paid less, not more, and I have to learn all this crap. So I hope that is not going to be a humongous impact on the fees because, you know, it's a big number for the borrowers, and especially when you start needing 2 appraisals instead of 1, et cetera. So
I understand that, but I don't think that our industry has really seen order of magnitude increases in pricing, period. I mean, there's certainly examples of it happening, and some of them are kind of outrageous, but in general, you've got appraisers who are getting paid by and large the same amount as they were getting paid 10, 15, 20 years ago. That's just a fact.
Just because the appraisers aren't making more doesn't mean that the price of appraisals hasn't increased. But that's a discussion for a whole different
That's a whole nother topic.
Agreed. Got a real rabbit hole over there. Michael's gonna put me in timeout now. So look at him. Look at him. I know that look. 2 things before, because this went fast. Just so you know, PCE came out last week, the Fed's favorite measure of inflation, and it was about as expected. So we'll see how that ends up going. Oil, as you know, I'm all obsessed with what price I'm paying for gas. It's gone down, even at my gas station. So that's great. Consumer confidence is down, big shocker. And pending home sales were up big time in August. So they went up 4% month over month. They expected them to be flat. So that's great news. I mean, there are loans out there, guys, lots of them. We are busiest I've been in years. So if you're not getting your piece of it, you've got to go get it. Like, you cannot wait for it to fall off the back of the truck. It's not going to happen. A couple of other things, Liz, I don't know if you can cover this really fast too, or Michael. AVMs, there's going to be a whole bunch of rules and compliance around AVMs and their consistency, right? Or tell me.
Well, it's actually about the effective date of the appraisal quality rules, which came out a year ago from the interagency, and it basically boils down to that a regulated institution that's using an AVM in a credit decision needs to have a comprehensive quality assurance program that's documented and that they can point to if they are audited. The only time that would be not true is if the AVM was actually an interactive AVM that was operated by an appraiser. Then that type of an AVM interaction would be exempt from the QC policy that the lender would be needing to have on file.
Okay, and then if you can do this quick, somebody's asking about hybrid appraisals. Do you know what that means?
So hybrid appraisals is fun with words. So hybrid appraisals used to mean that it was a combination of sometimes an AVM and an appraiser, what have you. The URAR and UAD 3.6 have introduced the concept of the hybrid appraisal, meaning bifurcated, meaning that someone other than the appraiser is going to do the inspection, and the appraiser is going to do the processing of that data and the actual appraisal itself. That's what hybrid will mean in 3.6.
Okay, data collectors. Is that what we're talking about there?
Bifurcated. It could be a data collector, it could be an appraiser trainee, it could be another appraiser, just not the appraiser that's doing the work.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, Michael, I love you.
I love
Thank you
too.
so much. This has been fun.
Thank
Hope
you,
that, hope
Liz.
that was helpful.
Yeah, we get to do this, by the way. Liz and I are both on a panel. Well, I'm going to moderate the panel. I'm going to stay out of the way of all the big brains and subject matter experts. But we're going to be presenting a 2-hour seminar on this to the Association of Appraisal Regulatory Officials from all the
State boards.
jurisdictions in the country. And quite likely, we kind of think they're going to ask us to come back in the spring and this is in Atlanta, so we have to go to Atlanta this weekend. But we think in the spring, it'll be held in San Diego, and we'll get to do the other half, all the updates that will have taken place over that small period of time. But it's everybody in the food chain who is just bereft of really an understanding or sensitivity to all the impacts that this change will have. So it's kind of a fascinating dynamic that we're kind of caught in the middle of. So
No, it's great. And by the way, Alan has twice wants me to make sure, because he said it was announced this morning at the realtor meeting. Today, they apparently have extended the BSA requirements for lenders. They pushed them to March 1st. So they won't have to start reporting December 1st. So stand by for news on that, kids. All right. With all that being said, have a wonderful week. Go get some loans and close them. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This was so informative. I really so